Slept on Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution.
This movie is a dirty trick on all Halloween fans.
Absolutely atrocious.
It's no wonder they gave up after this and brought back Michael Myers.
Were it not for the middle 30 minutes, which take approximately 73,000 hours to watch, forgetting it would be easy.
More laughable than terrifying.
Halloween 3 cynically critiques consumerism, all while tethering itself to a brand name in the craven pursuit of more money.
Snooze fest of a movie with terrible characters and a horrific story. Welcome to this week's episode of Slept on Cinema. I'm your host, StanSteamer.
And I'm GrobeStreet.
And this week, we're getting into the 1982, I'm just going to call it a Halloween classic, because that's what it is. Halloween classic, Halloween 3.
It is a Halloween movie.
It's a Halloween movie. It is, I feel like, it's a much maligned Halloween movie, but I think probably maybe in recent years has started to get more due, that it's overdue, which is great. Can't wait to get into it. It was a lot of fun to watch. It'll be a lot of fun to talk about here.
I feel like each year that goes by, it gets more credit for being good. Whenever you watch it, it's going to be at its peak best.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it yet.
Yes, and then you can watch it again next year, and it'll be even peaker.
Right.
Yeah, and it's great. You know, I feel like these Rotten Tomatoes scores do change over time. So I feel like we're really getting this at the last possible moment when we could review this. Because this movie, like all movies we review on this podcast, are at or below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes for both critics and audience score. And we structure the podcast so that the first half is spoiler-free. Take a break, go watch the film, come back, and talk about what we just saw.
And this one barely made it in for us. We'll get to that at the end here, but rotten premise. Hospital emergency room doctor Daniel Dan Chalice and Ellie Grimberg, the daughter of a murder victim, uncover a terrible plot by small-town mask maker Connell Cochran, a madman who's planning a Halloween mass murder utilizing an ancient Celtic ritual. The ritual involves a boulder stolen from Stonehenge, the use of Silver Shamrock masks, and a triggering device contained in a television commercial, all designed to kill millions of children. Critics, 50%, audience, 29%.
Just squeak by. And I do think this is one of these things that 5 years from now, you're going to look at, and this is going to be like audience 80%.
Yep. Critics, 80%.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So get in while you still can.
But it does make sense, like, we'll get into this later, that like it's a sneaky, for a horror movie in general, the critics being 50% is actually sneaky high. You talk about this a lot with certain genres have kind of like very volatile scores, and comedy and horror can be like that. There's some great horror movies out there that we've covered that have very, very low scores. But this one, like, I think they see what they were trying to go for in this. And it's pretty clear that I think part of why it's catching on now is it's a very well-made movie.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe, we'll get into why it didn't do so well later, but probably part of it was also just it was ahead of its time.
Yeah. A little meta.
Yep. So, movie came out October 22nd, 1982, opened up number 2, which I feel like is maybe surprising, but maybe not, because it was riding high on the Halloween, the success of the prior two movies. And it was number 2 to First Blood, one of the greatest movies ever. So again, that's like basically number 1. Rocky 3 also still in theaters at that time. So you could get 2 different fantastic Stallone films in addition to this amazing movie. I mean, you really could have had a triple feature like no other experience. This could have been.
That's one ticket
amazing.
Back in 82. That's one ticket. You get in there, you watch all 3.
That's right. I mean, this is sort of like you have a time machine. You might want to go back to October 22nd, 1982, just to watch these 3 movies in the theater on one.
We need to do a few of these. We've hit a few of these where we look at the movies that were in the theater when it's the movie we're covering, and there's just like a crazy amount of good movies. I think we've had multiple movies that we've done the same night out in theaters back in the day. But yeah, this is one of the high-end ones.
Oh, yeah. Top notch. Overall, took in $14.4 million in the US on a $4.5 million budget. I didn't see anything on the global distribution numbers, but regardless, again, someone cleared $10 million on this. This is great.
Beautiful.
And, I think the only thing to get into, and maybe this is the context people didn't have back in the 80s, is this was the first Halloween movie to deviate from the Michael Myers storyline. Obviously, it was also the last, but the idea was they were going to start an anthology series about different films all taking place on or around Halloween, instead of being based on the Michael Myers storyline, which of course also did take place on Halloween. This is one of these things. I mean, I get it as somebody who's a writer and making movies that, John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were the writers and directors here. They sort of only wanted to do this and be involved if it didn't involve Michael Myers. I think at that point they were probably a little burnt out and wanted to do something else. And it's a good idea to make something that's around Halloween. I was thinking about this. One of our friends was asking us about your favorite Halloween movies. And that's a very different question than your favorite movies that you like to watch at Halloween or your favorite horror movies. Mm-hmm. And there actually aren't that many really good movies that take place around Halloween. It's bizarre.
I feel like it was one of those where like, whoa, we can't touch Halloween. Let's go somewhere else. Let's go Friday the 13th. Let's almost make up one. Yep. Let's make something around Christmas more because this was done so perfectly. I feel like people stayed away for so long where you're right. All that's left now, or was for a while, was the Halloween series.
Yeah. So it makes perfect sense. And someone should pick this back up. I mean, all October, all people do, right, is watch horror movies. And if yours are about Halloween and taking place in and around Halloween, it just makes total sense that this should be a thing. So obviously wasn't what people were expecting, but
yeah, that we'll get into that too. It's like you said, this is a bit Michael J. Fox with the guitar, a little ahead of his time. Yeah, like a lot of this, like this anthology series stuff is all over Netflix now. There's so many things now where it's just like Halloween or Creepshow that was there, or just like these one-off shows, or like Trick or Treat. That movie is kind of like it all comes together, but it's like an anthology series where it's just different ideas. Which when you come up with these ideas for like that first movie of Halloween or the second one, you're probably not thinking it's going to be a franchise that's going to span 40 plus years. When you make that movie, you're probably thinking you're writing just another movie. And before that time, there wasn't a ton of slasher movies, so they probably didn't think they were creating Michael Myers, for 40 years. They thought they were making a Halloween movie. Right. So it makes sense to call it another Halloween movie. Maybe they would just do it differently until it was like, no, Halloween is Michael Myers, but how would they have known without like trying?
Right. Exactly. So I feel like with that context, that's really all you need. This is Halloween 3. It has nothing to do with Halloween 1 and 2. Just forget that and have a good time.
But getting to BOLO, even though this has nothing to do with Michael Myers, BOLO, Michael Myers.
Yes. I feel like this comes up early with BOLO Mustafa Akkad.
Yes.
I feel like when that name pops up on the screen, it's just, I've never seen any of these movies in the theater, but I can just imagine the entire audience just massive applause because it's just that name pops up and it's like, yes. Those
like mid 2000s Fangoria people just clapping every time that on the screen. Exactly. He's a big staple, but I'm going to go BOLO, just simply a pumpkin.
Yeah. I'm going to go BOLO, and I think this is our back-to-back feature of this in two films in a row. I don't know the proper term for this, but I'm calling it a BOLO, a mafia coat, or at least wearing your coat in the mafia style when your arms aren't in the sleeves. I don't know if there's another word for that, but I think it's our second movie in a row where somebody is wearing a coat like that.
It's often donned upon, like people put it upon you, right? You don't usually do that. Yes, exactly. It's a big move. Mafia coat makes sense. I know what that means. BOLO, slow reaction speed.
Yep. I'm going to go this is another instance of something that had come up in another film, but BOLO, a window full of TVs, which is something I love. And it brought me back to virtuosity.
Yep. BOLO, just one of the best, an absolutely amazing mustache.
It's It's like a top notch. It's one of those things. Like there are some things that are incomparable. Like you reach a certain level of A plusness that it's like you can't. It's just they're just different.
Yeah.
This mustache is on that level. Like there are no mustaches better. There are mustaches that are as good and different, but there are no mustaches better than the mustache in this film.
Right. There's like Tom Selleck, great mustache guy and phenomenal, but it's just like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron, MJ. They're all great, but there's differences, and that's okay, whichever one you want. But this is a legendary mustache.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. BOLO leg tremors. Great leg tremors.
It's a big movie for that. BOLO, an earworm alert.
Yep.
I didn't know they were called earworms, but I guess it's
it gets in there and then it's stuck.
That's it. Yep.
BOLO Cheese Whiz.
BOLO, one of the earliest CGI uses.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the first few.
BOLO, some Atkins butt. Didn't expect that.
Yeah, I put hero butt and yeah. Very Jean-Claude. That's usually his move on our podcast. That's his domain. BOLO, inappropriate work behavior.
Just left and right. Maybe in 1982 this was totally par for the course, but it definitely is a bit striking.
He's a good guy in 1982.
Yeah. BOLO security cameras.
BOLO drinking and doctoring.
Yes, a hopefully rare combination that I don't know. I'm gonna go with this is an old thing, but BOLO a handkerchief, and I don't know when. Like I feel like I don't know anyone except old people that carry handkerchiefs around. But was there a time when people our age carried around handkerchiefs? And if so, like when was the last time that was? Was it the 80s?
I had handkerchiefs as a child. I was like, they was stuffed into like my front pocket or something. Like, well, I wasn't my choice, but I think it was like a grooming attempt to be like, yeah, real men have handkerchiefs. But I think the whole world collectively went, this is gross.
Yes.
No, I don't think people carry around snot in their pocket as much. Your parents like we are.
It's weird.
That might have been a
weird thing.
All you needed back then was a handkerchief and a flask, and you were just ready to go.
Right? It's like if you have those two things. When you take your time machine, you go back to 1982, bring a handkerchief and a flask, you will blend right in. No one will even question your whatever else you have going on.
Okay, it's hammering gross like the rest of us. Is it me?
Yep.
BOLO shipping pieces of Stonehenge.
Yes. I'm going to follow mine up with is a contrast. I'm going from something that totally doesn't exist anymore in the handkerchief to something that has not changed since 1982, apparently. But BOLO, the wiffle ball packaging.
Oh, wow.
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same. And it shouldn't change. It makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Even because it's gone past that point where now it's like nostalgia buys.
Mm-hmm.
It just stayed the same. I'll do a couple little Easter eggy type things here. BOLO, Nancy Loomis cameo.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Might be nearby the doctor.
I will say BOLO, a strange drying off method. Your eyes peeled.
That is very strange. I was confused as well. BOLO, be on the listen out for Jamie Lee Curtis. Jamie Lee Curtis, obviously famous in the first couple, but she has an uncredited voice a couple times in this movie.
Oh, that's a great one.
Could be an operator, could be someone you hear over the intercom, but it is Laurie Strode.
That's fantastic. I will go, but this is also a listen for, but listen for bad guys. You will know they're there.
You will know they're there. That's so good. It's like I'm gonna get you, sucker. You ever see that where they have like their own? They have their own music. It's like the bad guys. BOLO similarities to the Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes,
there's
definitely reminiscent. Which is also both of those are great films.
So good. Yep, same location.
BOLO, important and relevant news. One of our favorite items on this podcast.
BOLO computer lights and pushing buttons.
Love the buttons, the lights, amazing in this movie.
So good.
BOLO, some head ripping.
Oh, piggyback. BOLO just grabbing.
That's like grabbing of all different types, really, throughout the film. BOLO bugs.
Yeah. BOLO bugs for sure. BOLO snakes.
Yep.
I've got one more. BOLO a sarcastic clap. Always fun.
Yep. Now I'll go with my last one is just an always all-time favorite. Always BOLO general store. Every time it pops up, love it.
I should have taken that one.
All right, drink to pair with the movie.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I kind of zagged here on mine. I usually pick something that I really want to drink, and I actually find my drink repulsive, but nevertheless, I'm recommending it for others to enjoy. So my drink is the Shamrock Shake, which you can get at it's a McDonald's product. It's usually around St. Patrick's Day, but it's a mint flavored milkshake, which I think I'm one of those people that mint is for toothpaste and gum, and everything else is pretty disgusting. Especially a milkshake mint flavored. Ugh. But anyhow, a lot of people like that. That's fine. So, and I think for this film, it just goes. The Shamrock element here is fantastic. If you want to make your own, you can whip one up with vanilla ice cream, milk, mint extract, and green food coloring. And then, obviously, if you care to, mix whatever adult beverage you'd like to in there. I think that's really, assuming you're not repulsed by it, a fantastic drink to go.
Yeah, and for this movie, as you'll know a little bit more at the other side, I think it might be a good movie to add some of that adult beverage stuff in there.
Yes,
perfect movie for that. I don't know. I never know how they say this, but mine is Sam Hain Sangria. So it's a name that comes up in this movie. And there's ingredients for it, and they all make sense, like bottle of red wine that represents a bloodshed, brandy that represents a spirit, and a few other things. But I don't care about any of that. I'm just going to say, if you make yourself any sangria you want, like there's always sometimes sangria doesn't need a whole lot of effort. You can just buy it from the store, dump some red wine into it, put some ice in it. You don't have to do the whole, like, put it in the fridge for 2 days, put all those stuff. It barely tastes any better. Just add an orange to it. That's all you have to do. Get your sangria, make sure it's nice and cold, and just add an orange to it. Come home from work, toss this on, make it easy. And I think it would just be the perfect thing to be put in the right mood, to just be like, pour a simple sangria, just top it with an orange, make it feel like it's, Halloween-y and related to this movie, and you'll see why. And just take it easy and enjoy a nice sangria. You're probably going to watch this, obviously, around Halloween, which is like a great beverage to have around Halloween.
Yeah, I feel like I got into a sangria adjacent beverage when I was studying abroad. You know how in Europe, I don't know if you've had Fanta in Europe, how it's just a phenomenal beverage, and here it's a different thing altogether. But you take that European orange Fanta and mix it straight with red wine, and it's basically a sangria-esque beverage without any effort, and it's fantastic.
Did you only stop because it was just one of those you had too much, or you've lost track?
The Fanta's not right.
Yeah,
I'd have to import like European Fanta, or you can kind of get there with Orangina, which is close here, but then it's just not
the same.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds sick. I feel you've had a number of good runs with specific alcohol drinks that maybe lasted 1 to 2 years in your period of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see this happening. When I move to Europe for a few years, I will pick this right back up.
All right, this movie's awesome. Can't wait to talk about it on the other side. Enjoy.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, the night no one comes home.
Slept on Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties.
Welcome back. That movie was fantastic.
It grows on me every time. Every time I see it, starting from like the first time I saw it, which was only a few years ago, I was like everybody else. I had no idea. I'd never seen it. Probably like during the pandemic when I caught up on all the horror movies. I just was waiting the entire time for Michael Myers to pop out. And for like everybody else in the audience, when you're expecting one thing, you don't get it. It's almost like you don't even watch the movie because you're just waiting. It's like Hot Tub Time Machine with like, no, the guy's arm's going to get pulled off and it never does. And you're like, well, I didn't even watch the movie. I was waiting for the guy's arm. So like, it's hard to focus when, if I'm watching Friday the 13th and Jason isn't there, of course I'm going to be thrown off a little bit.
Right.
If it's a movie on its own, like this movie, once you know that and you watch it again and just like Season of the Witch, this is a good movie.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We were talking about this before. It's a movie where I just have so many things to pick from the draft. There's just phenomenal.
I got a bunch of sleepers, but one clear-cut pick for me because it's the only thing I think about with this movie. I hope that didn't.
All right. Well, I have my overall, my one of one. We'll see. I'm very curious. So I'm taking first overall pick. I'm taking the Jingle.
Ah, of course. Now I got no first round pick, no pick. Yep.
I mean, the Jingle is amazing. It's whenever anyone mentions this film, it's the earworm. It pops into your head. It's perfect. It fits the era perfectly. It fits the time. It's like a time capsule in just one little sound. It's amazing.
It's London Bridge is falling down, and it was public domain. That's all it was. And then just like kids like it anyway, it's already a jingle. We can take it, put the words in, and all of a sudden, like everyone's just going to be singing London Bridge is falling down, which is already pretty, fun and catchy to sing. So it's just a countdown every day, 6 more days, 5 more days. And then it's like 1 more day to how it just keeps going every day. You have to watch the commercial. And then you almost kind of look forward to seeing the next commercial.
Yes. Yeah, the countdown reminded me of another one of our films, Entrapment. 3 days till the millennium.
Oh, right. Forgot about that one.
But yeah, masterful jingle. Love the idea of taking that, well-known intellectual property that's in the public domain, putting a spin on it, making it your own thing, and it's catchy. It's going to get stuck in people's heads, and it does. It's like it's a perfect piece of this movie. It also would have been a perfect piece of marketing for these masks.
I don't know who wouldn't buy these masks for sure with that kind of marketing, but I spent too long this last 2 days on trying to figure out how to make like that jingle, like use AI, whatever, to just get it be our, intro for a post of this podcast leading up to our podcast. And I feel like it's right there. It's just so easy and so catchy. Just change the words around. And I don't know. So that I think anytime you bring up, I've done it to a couple of people, you bring up this movie and they go, oh, the jingle. And it's just like the first thing until eventually it's like, oh, the jingle. Once you
jingle. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Thanks for bringing that up again. That's the pick. Everything else now is just goofy for me. But I also, close to that was my first pick, the Factory Tour, which led in the Cooper family, which was like the most annoying family, super salesy dad, the just annoying money-hungry wife, and the snotty-nosed kid. And then, they're getting led to that demonstration on the test room, and then it just went bonkers. You didn't know. I had no idea if he was going to like turn on his family. At that point, we hadn't really seen the power of the mask. That demonstration wasn't just for the doctor. It was for all of us to be like, this is what's going to happen to all of the kids in the entire country. This is horrific. This is going to happen to everyone. They just become like insects and bugs. And then those snakes kill the family. Like imagine an entire country of this. Nuts. Yeah. But it happens first to that awful family.
Yes. And the whole scene is fantastic because first of all, it's in a factory. And I know we've talked about docks a lot. Docks are one of one, but a close like 1B to docks is factories. Like factories, anything taking place in a factory. Like scene 2 of our movie, scene 1 will be docks. Scene 2 will take place in a factory right next to the docks because factories are awesome. Yep. So you're already there in one of the greatest scene locations possible. And then you also get this like weird, creepy animatronic room as part of the tour, which are also fantastic. Anytime you have those, I mean, some of it's a nostalgia thing that brings me back to, go roller skating and there'd be these animatronic things there playing drums or whatever. Those are always fantastic. And then you get this creepy, weird room situation thing that leads to someone's head getting zapped and full of bugs. It's amazing.
Amazing. And you're not even sure, it doesn't matter. You're not even sure why they're showing the doctor this, but it's like James Bond, right? It's just like, you know,
right.
Just tell me your plan, show me what it is. Great. Now we all get to see it. It was just perfect. And I love the family just being in there being, I guess he wants to know some of my views on his marketing. Just like that hubris in him to be like, oh, no, I'm just going to look past these walls that have steel, like the windows that have steel over them and a door. My son can't even go to the bathroom because they're so caught up in their own, like, hey, I'm the number one sales, whatever.
Yep.
So good. Great comeuppance for them.
So good.
And my second pick, this could reveal a lot about me, but I try to hide it. I love, it doesn't exist anymore, but the empty dive bar that he was at that was playing like cartoons at, I want to say like 10 o'clock at night.
Yep.
He's the only one in it. It's not going to shut down anytime soon. He's just ripping shots and just being like an old drunk in the 80s. I think all of those places are mostly gone in most places. And it's just nice.
Still a few. There's still a few. And it's tough because you need to find the ones that aren't, that hasn't sort of intentionally become their identity. Like you just need one that is just existing as that, not sort of intentionally being that. Right.
Because you know that none of the wives ever been. So I'm going to go to like, I'm going to go to Mahoon's or whatever. And like, yeah, whatever. Sure. It's just not on the bar. But all the people do there is just like, you know, watch TV and just booze and no one talks to you. The lights are all down. There was I used to work at a video store and it was like every day, if you caught the morning shift that opened at like 9 a.m, the guy from Rick's Pub who owned it or whatever nearby where I grew up would come by and grab a couple movies. Like, the guy's always like this. And it would be like Tommy Boy and some cartoons. And, you know, like that's what's on at the bar from like 9 to noon to bridge the gap until whatever else comes on. Just like, not many of those places exist anymore.
Yeah. It's also great. Like, you know, they knew this guy was a doctor and an alcoholic. They're not giving him a hard time about it. They're just letting him do his thing.
He's a doctor. He's got it together. Whatever. It's fine. You only have a problem if you like hit the tree on the way home for like the 4th time. Yes. And then someone's got to talk to you.
That's a great pick. Great pick. I'm going to take, I feel like this is a bit of a twofer, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to take the bookends of the film, meaning the opening scene and the ending scene.
Nice.
The opening scene, it's one of my favorite ways to start a movie where it's just somebody running because you don't know, are they being chased?
Can we add that to our movie? Somebody running to start the movie with the docks and the factory.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Because you don't know, right? Is this person getting chased? Is this person chasing someone? You don't know what it is, but it's instantly, you know, there's someone is in peril. You don't know if you're watching the person, the predator or the prey, which is just, I love that. And then there's also, like, I realized you go several minutes into the opening of this film before there's any dialogue. It's just, you get the sound of those shoes running down the street. You get the sound of a car slowly driving along while it's looking for this guy who's hiding. It's great. And you don't know what's going on. It's super, super creepy, and you start to get a sense of the eeriness of some of these characters. And you're like, okay, I know something's not right here, but I don't yet know what it is. And it's just a great introduction to the film on the front end. And then the ending, that ambiguity that they leave you with like, did millions of children's heads just get zapped and full of bugs? Like,
stop it.
I love how they didn't, I think they did, but who knows?
I think they did too. And from what they tell you, like, I think that's what they intended, but it might have been too hard for people.
Yes.
To take. So they gave that little Sopranos-esque, like, oh no, anything could have happened. But really, all the kids' heads are filled with bugs in the United States. Yes.
Yeah. Right. It's just like they did it. Like, you know, it's like so many of these movies would get a nice tidy bow at the end. A, it's not tidy because there's ambiguity, but B, it's not tidy because probably all these kids got full of bugs and snakes.
Right. Yeah, that's horrible. That's how else would you end the movie? Stop it. What do you want to see? You have to see every kid in America's head get filled with bugs and snakes.
Yeah. So I think they couldn't have done a better job at the start and finish of this film.
That's great because that's funny. That's one of those, I feel like the ending is another part of this movie that has gained some traction too, because That
Yes.
like that way of leaving a movie is not without the tidy bow was not exactly popular in the 80s. It's barely popular now. Like it's still hard for people, but people have seen so many more films now where it's a little more acceptable. That ambiguity to leave a film off, like there's not a lot of ambiguity in the Halloween series or slash series. Like
No.
you try to kill a bunch of people, you kill him temporarily, you move on to the next movie. But this was just very, very different.
Yeah. So that's my second pick. My third pick, I'm kind of surprised he lasted this long. I'm taking Tom Atkins. Yeah. We touched on a whole lot of him in the BOLO, the mustache, the butt, the alcoholism, the carefree nature and friendliness with the staff at his hospital. This guy, he just sort of, it seems like the world is his oyster. He casually has his way with every environment. And he's a doctor, he's an alcoholic, he's somehow able to just bed this very attractive younger woman with ease. He is fearless in going after this conspiracy. He clearly had a relationship with the woman in the lab. I don't know if it's just the mustache, if it's the physique, but he has that charisma, and he nails it in this character.
Yeah, I think gets with his, I mean, he's already been with his ex. That's who like Dr. Loomis's wife was. He gets with Ellie, Teddy, the coroner, and I think he might have been with that nurse that he was messing around with as well. So like it is his world, except you also realize like, oh, he has no control over his kids and his ex. And he's hated by like the most important thing. Yeah, he goes out and cavorting and does all this other stuff, but really he's just still kind of a bum. But
yes, I mean his family life is a gaping hole. Yeah. But Atkins just again, we touched a lot on his character, but he also just nails that character. I think he gets his highs and his lows fantastically.
It's such a funny, rugged like that. It's almost like they were, Die Hard. The wife in that has a particular look of like the 80s, like this sort of hero has a certain look for the 80s that like you wouldn't see now. Like you wouldn't expect to see Tom Atkins' butt back in the day and be like, oh, that's something women want to see. Like he's just like a guy with a mustache who drinks like he looks like he does. He's like, he drinks a little bit too much, but he's got a short temper. But that's Dr. Tom or whatever. It just was like a thing that was appealing in the 80s, and he just was right in the nerve of that.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Whenever I see him in a film, it's always like, oh yeah, Tom Atkins is in this.
Yeah, me too. It's just like a fun, like, ooh, this could be like a fun horror. It gives it a little gravitas, like we did with Oliver Platt, almost.
Yes, exactly.
That was your second or third pick?
That was my third.
That was your third. Man, I don't have much left here. I'm gonna go with. Oh, I thought, not that it dragged, but like there was a bit of the movie in the middle when they went and visited the town where kind of took, parts just were a little bit slower. But once I feel like the good doctor made it to the lab or the lair for the demonstration, like just when he got there, not even the demonstration, once that happens, every time I like rewatch this movie from that point on, I feel like that's when you check in. That's when everything is going to start. It's like the start of the end of the movie, even though it's like, 30 minutes to go. So I think once that happens, it's like, all right, let's get your drinks ready. Here we go. Let's watch it, because it can give you a little. I liked it, but a lot of people had a little tough time with the slowness in the middle.
Yep.
And my last one, my sleeper pick, sitting close to the TV. Is that's a concern that is completely gone now, or like we've changed it because things are mounted? We don't have to worry about this. But this was a big thing. Like
that was a big thing.
My dad was here while I was watching it. He's like 70 something. He only caught like 2 minutes of this movie as I had it on, and one of the kids was sitting too close to the TV. He's like, that kid's sitting too close to the TV. I'm like, all right, I get it. It's a movie. There's nothing I can do. I won't sit that close to the TV, but it's like this weird reflex that happens. And now we both have kids, and occasionally TV's on, but it's mounted, right? Or it's up on something.
Yeah.
It's not just up on the floor.
Maybe, I feel like now it's just like, just don't touch the TV.
Yeah. So I'm drafting sitting close to the TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Sitting close. You're right. When we were growing up, that was always a thing. You're sitting too close, back up. Don't sitting close. And now I don't know if it's just like a sign of simpler times where Now there's like too many other things to worry about. So it's like, whatever, your kid sits close to the TV, fine, have at it.
Yeah, you just don't
Or
want
if people are like, well, we went through a generation of people sitting close to the TV and they seem totally fine. So
totally fine.
Whatever.
Whatever. Like, yeah, it's tough to be like, don't sit close to the TV when, we're all probably people who open the refrigerator, like we said, and sit close to the TV, all the things we're not supposed to do. And
yeah,
things were probably just annoying for our parents, but didn't do anything to us.
Man, I'm going to have to burn through some honorable mentions.
Nice.
But my sleeper pick is going to be, because this really is a sleeper, and the honorable mentions I think maybe are not quite as sleepery, but I really liked how the robot / man who killed the guy in the hospital, he waited to get in his own car before lighting himself on fire. I thought that was very considerate. He goes in, he kills this guy. He's obviously a bad guy or a robot. I don't know how much concern he has for others. I mean, he did just crush a man's skull.
He didn't kill anybody else on his way out.
Yeah. He's just like, all right, I've done what I had to do. Now I'm going to go into my own little space and casually light myself on fire. He didn't want to bother anybody else. And I thought that was a really nice touch.
I think that's part of why the madman in this like these robot guys. And he even says, like, they're loyal and they listen. Like, I have one job. Go kill that guy. Kill yourself. But don't have to harm anybody else. And they take it to heart. They don't have one, but they take it to the core, the mainframe, and they don't kill anyone. Because right after he had done that, there was a screaming nurse and the doctor ran in and he just walks by them. He's not like, hey guys, I'm going to try and get away with this. I'm just going to go off myself in my own car.
My own car. Yes. Thought that was great. Buzz through my honorable mentions. One, the music. I loved how it was the Halloween theme, but a new riff on it with all the synthesizers. All the effects were fantastic. Like the makeup and all the weird bug stuff was great. The reveal of the robot stuff, fantastic. Loved that turn. It was sort of like an extra bonus piece of this.
And I almost took the knitting from that. The knitting in the corner. It was perfect.
So good. Crawling through an air shaft, always love to see that. I don't know how many movies, which is kind of surprising that we haven't had that a lot in our films, because I feel like our movies are crawling through the air shaft kind of films. We just haven't had a lot of it. And then my last one was just, and like honestly, this could have been a number one pick, but the idea of advanced ancient technology.
Yeah.
Love that. The fact
isn't
that it's advanced.
Isn't that like
ancient. Yeah, it's like Aliens. Star Wars was the same way, right? Like that takes place in the past. And the fact that this one it uses a piece of Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Like that's amazing. I get part because I feel like Stonehenge is one of those things that when you're a kid, you kind of think Stonehenge is going to be like a very important part of your entire life. That's always going to be coming up. It's
every other National Geographic has it on the cover.
Yes, exactly. So you were like, this is like Stonehenge, the Bermuda Triangle. These are things that are like important for everyone's entire life.
These things.
Yeah. So it's good to see that showing up in pop culture.
Yeah. Superlative for this week, we have favorite mask. I'll let you go first on this one.
So this one, it's funny because I almost included this as an anti-pick because I don't know if you've ever worn a mask as a costume, but I do think it's one of those things you do once.
Yep.
You wear a mask and you're like, wow, this is like, I can't see anything. It's getting all wet inside. It's terrible. But putting that aside, the masks in this film are fantastic. I do also like that for folks who have seen the newer series of the Halloween films, that these are sort of little Easter eggs that pop up in a couple of the newer films, which is fun. And the masks here are great. But for me, it's easy. The favorite mask in this, for me, it's the pumpkin.
Yeah,
pumpkin is just, it is the icon of this film. It is what I think of when I think of the Halloween masks. I don't know if this was the thing. There obviously was the Headless Horseman was a story. I don't know if this is intended to be a riff on that, but I feel like this movie really put the pumpkin mask on the map. Like I think there were probably witches and skeletons and all of that before, but the pumpkin, it's just so good.
Yeah, it's like, I get it. witches are inherently kind of scary. A skull is pretty scary. Pumpkin doesn't have to be. Jack-o'-lantern in this movie makes it scary. And that scene with the Comfers, whatever, Camper, the family that died, and they showed his pumpkin mask just be like torn apart by bugs.
Yeah.
Like that, for me, put it over the top. It's got to be that. I was close on the skull mask because I thought it looked good at the end. It looked so cool.
They're all cool.
They're all so cool. I mean, that's the point, is that's why everyone was buying those masks, because they're handmade. Like, the process that went into it is so impressive. But I'm going to go with a more reasonable mask, which is the dad that just wants to come home from work, maybe grabs a few beers, and there's a couple masks sitting by the friggin' register at the liquor store. You grab those ones, you bring them home to your kids. Like, the amount of liquor store presents that you can get as a kid that you think are just amazing. It's just unfortunate that, the mom had already gone to the store and got the good ones. But if, dad came home with the liquor store masks, it could have been all right. It just turned out like they had a frame of reference that made them look horrible because they were terrible, terrible masks. But it was an attempt by the dad.
If they only knew.
Store masks. Probably comes with a nice full-size Hershey bar.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Let's get to my new, maybe favorite segment that I struggled with a ton this movie. And I usually really enjoy it, and I just couldn't nail it down. I wonder if you did, but the bumper sticker. What favorite line from this movie could end up as a bumper sticker on the back of someone's car?
Yeah, I struggled as well for almost the entire film. And then at the very end, there was an obvious one for me. The guy... not Colonel. What's it? Connell? You want to say Colonel, but it's Connell, right?
Connell. It's Connell, I think. It's not. I should know it. Connell, I think. Connell.
So he says, "Do I need a reason?" And it's just perfect. That's it's a perfect. You put it on whatever assholey car, and you can just be a jerk. You don't even have to stand for anything. It doesn't have to say, I'm for this or whatever. You're just like, do I need a reason? No, I'm just going to be a jerk.
Yeah.
I'm going to drive like an asshole. I don't need a reason.
The opposite end of that spectrum, for the person who has a bunch of people being assholes to them, I'm going to use the quote also towards the end. Stop it, stop it, stop it. For someone who's just like, I feel like a bunch of cars just need to be like, I'm overwhelmed. Stop it, stop it, stop it. The two hands, and it's just like, too much going on. So like some people would just be like, stop it, stop it, stop it. And that would be like, I know what that bumper sticker means. Let me stay away, give them a little wide berth, give them some room. Don't beep at them. Too much is going on. I just like, stop it, stop it, stop it.
That's great. It's kind of the perfect. It's like the perfect pairing, those two as well.
You can see how one would have the other.
Yes.
I almost did Where Do You Want to Sleep? But I thought that you're going to get picked up by the cops eventually.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But that line from the movie was hilarious to me. Chalice was in the bedroom with the whatever and be like, do you want me to sleep in the car or the floor? And she's like, well, where do you want to sleep? And then that was just it.
It's like, wow, this is happening. Yeah. Amazing.
I'll go first on this because I think it's just the obvious one. I don't know if you have something more in depth, but one change to be a blockbuster, the one change we would make to make this movie a blockbuster. It did pretty well anyway, but the one change I would make is just don't call it part of the Halloween series. I think if it's a one-off and it's just a movie on its own, so many people in the reviews, they're not even talking about the movie. They're just talking about how it isn't Halloween. There was no Michael Myers. If there was nothing else for it to stand on, then it would stand on its own. And it would just be a very good Halloween movie about like witch robots coming to get us.
Yeah.
Which was great, but everyone just leaves with, well, there was no Michael Myers. And if there was no connection, you wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. And I don't know that's obviously the answer, because you take that context away from this film and everyone loves it. So that's the obvious answer here. And I think it's the title, it's the marketing. And I feel like I have a problem with both sides of the colon there. Halloween 3, it shouldn't be that. But I also didn't really get the season of the witch. Like I get maybe it's sort of this like modern ancient witchcraft kind of, but it's not. Season of the Witch is not the right.
No,
title either. So I don't know what it is. And if you're making an anthology around Halloween, you figure you do want to work Halloween in somehow, but you need to get a bunch of people sitting around a table to figure out how to work that in without making people think it's a Michael Myers movie.
But it had people think it was a Michael Myers movie or a witch movie. It was neither.
Yes.
There was no
Neither.
cauldron.
Right.
There's no brooms. There's no,
exactly.
I'm going to get you. There's none of that. It's like Celtic dudes in business suits who are robots. Like,
Right.
There's nothing Michael Myers and nothing witch about this movie.
Yes. Yeah. Terrible, terrible name.
Terrible. Just call it what it is, and I think you'll crush it.
Yeah, I mean, you'd pop that Celtic dudes and business dudes into the VCR any day.
Just standing there creepily. Yeah, I'll watch that all the time. Just grabbing people's faces off. Let's do spin-off ideas. What do you got?
Yep. For me, this rolls right off the last one and another. Just keep it simple. Do what they intended to do. It's not really a spin-off. Just run with the anthology. We talked about this before. There aren't enough movies that take place around Halloween. Their idea was right. Do it. See it through.
I think that's good. I did not go that route. I went, once again, too far in depth in creating a movie. And then upon creating a movie, I realized it's really hard to describe. And I'm like, I have like the first scene scripted out, or like I use chat, whatever. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, I expect nothing less.
So I have Halloween, Curse of the Mask. I'm going to paraphrase my own writing here horribly. But essentially the idea is I want these, it's like Freddy vs. Jason, right? I want these two worlds to converge and have, the witches versus Michael Myers. And they see each other all within a Halloween movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fantastic, right? It's like you get the best of both worlds.
That's the idea. So I'm going to read what I wrote. So I got Halloween, Curse of the Mask. Michael Myers is drawn to the dark energy left behind the destruction of the Stonehenge piece and is captured by a coven of witches, descendants of the Connell Cochran's cult. They imprison him and force him to wear a magical mask to control him for their sinister rituals. However, Michael's inherent evil proves too strong. In a climactic struggle, he overpowers the witch's mask, reclaiming his iconic mask. Now, free, Michael goes on a bloody rampage, slaughtering the witches one by one. Final showdown, the witches summon the spirit of Cochran. But even his ancient magic can't stop Michael. The film ends with Michael victorious, destroying the coven and continuing his unstoppable reign of terror. So they tried to control him with the mask because he wears one. But you can't control Michael. Eventually it's not going to work, and he kills them all. Move it along.
That's so good. I, again, cannot believe this is not a film. I can already see the finale scene obviously takes place at Stonehenge.
Has to.
This is amazing. I feel like this should come into existence. Anyone who's listening, you can have this idea. We just want to watch the movie. Make it happen.
And you can make, like, everything's made now. Like, nothing matters what was said before in a franchise, whatever. It's like, we'll just call this season of what is it? Yeah, Halloween, Curse of the Mask. Fine, just drop it today. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
We're all used to different weird timelines now. There's been 50 Batmans, whatever.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, I just love anytime. It goes back to Jason vs. Freddy, why we picked it. Right? I just love seeing evil meet evil. Let's see.
Totally. Give the people what they want.
Give the people what they want. Where were we at here? We're at the end. Any notes that we missed?
I feel like I hit a lot of my notes with my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I hit a lot of mine. You got a mine too with your honorable mentions.
I did have one note that asking if anybody home. Because of cell phones, you kind of always know where people are. So that's like a lost question.
That is a lost question. That was a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's gone. Let's see. The time zone, you think that's going to be a problem at all? Did it already happen on the East Coast?
I wondered that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say it's not. We're not a podcast for plot holes. That's not for me.
Yes.
I like that tidbit that this is an old piece from 1785 in Germany. He just got it when the old guy got about that another head that was ripped off.
Yep. When they first pull into that town and everyone's sort of leering out the windows at them, very much reminded me of Texas Chainsaw, the newer one that we did when they go to that small town. Clearly an homage to this scene.
Feel like a goldfish?
Yeah.
Those towns are good, and depending on where you are, obviously, those towns are either creepy or endearing. I guess if the whole town stops, it's always creepy.
Yes. It's usually both. It's a mix.
Yeah, right. But sometimes they stop because you're in a small town and they're curious. But this was a different kind of stop where it was like, why are they here?
I also like the drunk who really knew what was up. And he says he's going to get a case and a half of Molotov cocktails. How many Molotov cocktails are in a case?
Is it a regular beer case? Like, is it 20? Or it's not a beer, right?
I was thinking 12.
12. It's 12. So he wants 18?
Yeah. I mean, if 12 is in a case of Molotov cocktails, I don't know.
Right. It'd be funny to me to not fill out the other half if you're holding them.
Yes, right. It's a very specific and strange number. You think you either have one case or two cases or just like a bag full.
Yeah. Unless he knows like one case is definitely enough. So, but you know what? A case and a half. Infinity plus one.
Yes.
Like
That'll take him down.
That'll take that. Yeah, I got nothing else. Do we know what we're doing next?
So next week, we are dipping our toes back very carefully into lava. We are finishing off, what year was that? 1996? When we had the twofer. We've already done Dante's Peak, and we are next doing Volcano, which I believe came out that same year.
Well, it's listed as 97, but Dante's Peak pushed their editing to jump out ahead of Volcano. So maybe that's good.
Yep. So we will see. We already did Dante's Peak. It was fantastic. Volcano, also fantastic. Hard to choose sides, but can't wait to get into that.
Yeah, I can't wait. Tommy Lee Jones, Anne Heche, Don Cheadle. This is going to be awesome.
And a Volcano, apparently.
And a Volcano, right. And the Volcano, which is the main point. Awesome. This was a blast, and later.
Later.